Hey everybody, hope that you're doing well. Welcome to the stream. I'm going to be working on my comics tonight, as usual, and I'm joined by my beautiful wife, Kim.
Hello.
She's going to be reading me questions so that I don't have to keep on stopping while I'm working. So that way I won't have to just go back and forth from the chat. And I can just keep my head down.
Yeah.
So at this point in the image, I am just in the comic, I am focused on this sort of like flashback scene where the big old lady that's in the cave here, if you've watched the last stream, she's kind of explaining what's happened to the world that you're seeing, or that you've seen in prior pages if you've been following along with the comic streams. And this is like before, you know, everything went to shit. So yeah, gonna be some pretty grand, gigantic scenes, which is very exciting. If you can tell, the big image in here is a homage to Final Fantasy VI. Hello. Hey, Kimmy.
Hey. I don't know what music's playing, so I don't know how loud. If I'm talking loud enough for everybody.
It's Hades. Hades music. I can turn it down a little bit.
I just want to make sure everyone can hear me.
I think the levels are okay.
Okay. Just people saying hello.
So, if anybody has any questions or comments, feel free to drop them in the chat, and Kim will read them to me, and we'll just get rolling.
Wants to know, do cocoa butter works?
It does not. It's a very timely reference. Okay, so I'm going to be turning off a bunch of layers just so I can focus on one piece at a time. So I'm going to do that. So I'm turning off the bottom panel, and then I'm going to turn off the big lady, turn off the big old radial. Oh, I guess I'm not going to turn off the sun there. Well, maybe I will. Maybe I'll just focus on the plants first. So I'm trying to do this in like a couple semi... I mean, I'm not going to do it like perfectly symmetrical where I can flip them. So I'm just going to kind of like keep my sketch symmetrical and then have the inking that I do not be symmetrical, if that makes sense. So yeah, hello. Let's get into it. Of course, I have the wrong color.
What page is this again? What number page?
10. It's about the halfway mark of the comic.
Okay.
This is sort of like the turning point in the comic where a bunch of stuff happens. So up until now, it's been kind of just people walking around and talking about stuff, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you decide what font you're using, or if you're going to do handwriting or
I'm doing handwritten.
Okay. All caps, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm gonna do like a variety of stuff with the font. You know, put emphasis on like things where the characters are being aggressive or whatever else. You know what I mean? Just like kind of emphasize certain parts of it. But I'm not gonna do. I'm gonna try and keep it like pretty simple. I'm not gonna go like overboard and do like some weird cursive-y stuff. I just want it to feel like. Yeah, I want the whole comic to feel handmade. I have a bunch of brushes in Clip Studio that I use for doing handwritten stuff. So I have a few options.
I want to do that thing where I can make my handwriting into a font, so I can make one for you.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Comic-y style.
I like doing that stuff too. It's like, but I know that there's like other apps we haven't tried yet, but I mean, that's kind of like what I'd like to do too, is just like design out a couple different fonts and try them. But for this one, because the comic's so short, I'm not going to do a font. I'm just going to write the whole thing because it's not like a ton of
Yeah.
lines. It's like
I didn't know if you
two
wanted a more
written pages
a
of
more girly
dialogue.
handwriting and
No, I
cursive
mean
in there.
I want it to all come from me. I don't want it to
Yeah.
like be, I want it to all be like one singular effort. That's like the whole
Mhm.
thing with this book in particular, is I just want it to like go all out and cover everything.
Mhm.
Like that's, I would say, like, to anybody who's into that sort of thing, like one of my biggest, not like gripes, but just something that's a standout to me is like bad text in a comic, because you can have everything look so beautiful in the drawings, and then a bad font can throw the whole thing off or just make it not feel handmade anymore. So like even if your handwriting's not like the greatest in the world, I always think it's better to try that first.
Yeah. It's part of the art.
Yeah,
Like
it's
it can't be
nice.
an afterthought.
No,
Make it
it
more
needs to
feel
like
like more
complement it.
cohesive. I get that.
Yeah, it feels like you're
Um,
kind of removing a part of yourself from the whole thing. Just having this one weird, like, artificial thing just kind of stands out.
Koteri Inc. says, how many days of work has it been to reach 10 pages with this quality of work?
Oh, it's not a ton of days. Um, it's more or less just that I try to do this whenever I can, like between work. So like each page takes me around a day. Like it doesn't take me super long time. It's just that I haven't been able to focus on it just isolated. I've had to do work in between
Yeah.
doing the comic. So I still have
Yeah,
like a
this is not
day
a paid
job.
project. So,
Yeah, it's like it's only
not yet,
paid
not technically.
insofar as the Patreon is a way to pay for it. That's about it. So, given that, if you like the comic and you want to help support, the Patreon is the best way. That's, and then I'll offer up things on there, obviously, and I have a bunch of backlog of things available. But I mean, whenever you do these kind of projects, you're gambling and you need the time set aside in order to do them. I mean, it's just a huge amount of labor, and I'm definitely like, in the future I'm going to be doing issues, so similar to this where I do like 20-page chunks. Like I'll probably do like Starvale that same way, and just kind of knock out what I can when I can, and then until there's enough to really like kickstart a print release and get some idea of how many people actually want it, so I can order the right amount of books. But I mean, you got to
Well,
really play this out just right.
yeah, if the Patreon reached your day rate,
It doesn't even need to reach my day rate. It just needs to reach a rate that's like, where it's the only thing you do. Like, I don't know, like that. I still want to do client work. I really enjoy the push that client work gives me to really try and do more, like try and challenge myself. Because like I spoke on that like for a while on here, about how like for the longest time I just was thinking all I want to do is personal. Yeah, like that's it. Like that would be great if I could get to that point. And then when things were going like super good on the Patreon, I found that even given my like best effort, I wasn't pushing myself enough. I wasn't really going after like challenging things. And then I found out like, oh, that's because I'm not working like for somebody who's really pushing me to do something outside of my ability. Like if it's up to me, I still will rein it in a little bit to something that like I know I can do.
yeah. Sean Fuqua says, are you excited to review the challenge pieces? I'm terrified of getting my second piece done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this the Sean? This is the Sean that works with you, right?
Sean
Last
who?
FU.
No, that's not the Sean I work with.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I'm really excited. I've peeked in at the challenge a little bit. I've cheated, and all the pieces were really cool when I looked, and then I went, I shouldn't look. I should wait. So I just backed away from it. But yes,
Hmm.
that review is
I
coming.
don't know if you I don't know if you called this out, but the last few streams, people have been doing like a draw along with you because that's what we call the stream is draw alongs.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I
people
saw
have
that.
been doing like a pass it along draw along. Did you see that
Mm.
in the Discord? So that's another part of being part of the Patreon. Everyone's just like involved, I feel like. It's really nice. Someone had another question. Oh, okay. EJ Fudd said, now that Kim is here, are you going to talk about the trip or did I miss out on that? The trip to New Hampshire?
Yeah, what trip? Oh, like on mushrooms?
No. It's funny.
I mean, there's not like a ton to say that like I haven't already talked about,
Yeah.
other
And
than
I
like
was in the chat
deeply,
when we were
deeply
talking about it.
personal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, do you really want to hear that I saw our children mourning my death as old men? I don't think so. Get that out of this entertaining and fun comic stream, buddy. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was existential.
When you see that, you
It
just
was,
go, oh shit. Oh no.
yeah. Yeah, that was a lot. It was a lot of ups and downs, but it was good. Except for this last time,
Yeah, Kim got
just
sick.
ended up with a stomachache for like 4 days because I was like, "Hey, New Year's Eve, let's have a really nice, fancy, just poached salmon," and that's it. And that's what we had in a salad. I was like, I should have
Yeah,
ate so much more food. I was so
that
nauseated. It
that
was
empty
terrible.
belly was a bad idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but otherwise it was fun. I just kept telling him, I was like, stop, I don't want to cry. Stop trying to make me cry.
And I just stare off into the distance and tears would just roll down my face.
While we listen to like Crystal Castles.
Yeah.
And the lights are probing us. We see fractals everywhere.
Yeah, it's just chaos.
It was a little chaotic. It was fun.
Any other questions?
Yeah, let me see. Bagged Bag says, isn't that possibly another skill one can work on to push oneself beyond your current limits, even beyond client demands?
I mean, yeah, for sure. But I think like the impetus to do it isn't there for me like right out the gate. Like I just have so much other stuff going on, Like with a whole family and like all these things you could be doing. It's like I really do need sometimes I just feel like I need that extra push or just something that takes me out of my comfort zone. Like I don't always have this like fresh idea of something to do. And when I get asked like if you saw the Diablo 4 Season of the Construct key art that I did that's on their like Twitter page, like that image, like that's something that I got like excited to do because it made me think like, oh, you're gonna give me this cool opportunity to do like an old school fantasy illustration. And I had this whole like pitch and just like this real like jumping off point. That's the kind of thing that I'm looking for, is like this initial burst of inspiration of like, oh wow, yeah, that would be cool. And like talking to a team and getting a bunch of like feedback and people getting excited about what you're doing. And then you want to like really get everybody into it. And there's like a whole back and forth. And, it's not so much like I couldn't do good work. I just like people. So it's nice to have people to bounce things off of, Like that's like a big part of it is like if I'm just doing it for me, then it's just for me. And that's not as much of a motivation for me. It's like I don't really care too much about that. But if I'm doing it to like show other people this cool thing and everybody's excited about it, then that's a little different. And yeah, I get like a different kind of motivation from those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I really like how quickly that tree came together.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I always forget like how
no,
easy
like
organic
no
stuff is. Like
it was
organic
only
stuff in this
15
style.
minutes.
Yeah, this style is like if I do bushes and plants and things, it just flies by for me.
Yeah, you've only been live for 15 minutes, so.
Gosh.
Julian says, do a lot of the artists who work at Obsidian work remotely, or is it a majority in LA?
At Obsidian?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I think like generally speaking, if I were to kind of talk on the whole industry, a lot of people work remotely. Like a lot of the people that I work with on the Diablo team aren't in LA. And that's, you know, that was surprising to me actually, just because I didn't think like a company like Blizzard would allow that for, you know, at least like up until now. Like I thought maybe it would have been in-house at this point. But it's cool that they're allowed to do that if you like doing that, you know? Like some people, I've heard a lot of stories of people who were like initially really into the idea of working remotely, and then over time it just became like, oh shit, I need to be around people again. Like this is a lot to just be like alone all the time.
Electric B7 says, are you using one brush?
Yeah, this is all one brush in Krita. The Sketching Chrome Thin Brush. It comes with the program, and Krita is free, although you should donate because it's free. And the fact that this program is free is absurd.
Faceman Vod says, I just found your work today. I just wanted to say, truly breathtaking and inspirational work, man.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm trying to push myself with this comic in particular. I'm trying to do something that, you know, I've never done before. Just go all out inking and coloring this whole comic in a real particular way, and, you know, see if it's only like difficult for a little bit of time. Like, because it might just be the case that I get so fast doing this like I am right now that I can do this for every project, which is what I would like to do. So I just need more experience, and it's nice to be able to test myself with this book, see how quick I can get, and then have a really good idea of what it's going to take to do some bigger books. Because the actual Starvale comic in script form is right around 80 to 90 pages. So that'll be a pretty hefty book to do a whole style like this in. And I just needed to know, like, can I do that? Like, can I actually handle that workload? And so far it seems like the answer is yes. So I'm feeling really good. And it's really nice to hear all the kind words about this style and everything that's happened so far in the stream. It's very motivating, so I really appreciate it.
Johnny Pearson says, writing does writing in general drain your energy like it does me? Maybe I'm focusing too hard, but I put all my all into what I'm writing and let my mind wander anywhere, then subsequently need a nap.
Oh, I mean, not so much like writing on my own. Like, just, I don't really do that too much. I did do that with this script, but this is like a tiny script, and I did it with the Starvale script back when I wrote that. But when I do like Steve Lichman, and Dan and I will write for like 6 hours straight, and like literally just 6 hours straight of just improvising lines and then writing them down and improvising more lines and trying to figure out story beats and connecting a bunch of dots from the narrative. And that is like like I've worked jobs like manual labor jobs, but there's something about the mental stuff of doing that in particular. Like art doesn't do this to me. Like I could draw all day and not feel drained, but like writing for that long, it just crushes me. I feel like I need to go into a dark room and just do nothing for like 20-30 minutes, just sit in complete silence.
I always feel like you have that like overtiredness where you're like extra silly, where you're like always you're like constantly cracking jokes because you can't stop at that point.
Yeah, it's weird.
But you feel like too tired. None of
yeah,
them make sense.
it kills me. I don't know. Like that's one of the only things that really makes me feel not like burnt out, but just like, oh, I just really need the nap or something.
Revan Davidson said, since you mentioned matching your day rate before, care to share what your day rate is? I guess 2K-ish.
No, it's not 2K-ish.
It's not. Okay.
Because I'm pretty quick, but I'm not like that quick. I'm not where I can just charge 2K. But I mean, I don't know. I don't really want to say it on here because I don't want to do any sort of like, this is what it is, declarative things. Because my day rate changed so much. Like when I started, it was way less. And like, I heard a number of different rates that you're supposed to charge. But I will say that like a normal day rate that I've seen like broadly in the industry hovers between $850 and like $1,500, and then a high end of like $2,000. But I mean, you have to look at it like this. If you do a super high day rate, then you can't really do multiple things at the same time. And if you're into like working at night, then you could potentially stack 2 day rates on top of one another and make, as long as your output is good enough, as long as you're fast enough to do like all the work that's required, you could potentially be making twice that number every day.
Oh, Julian said I mentioned Obsidian because I thought Dave was an AD or senior artist there part-time.
No, not at Obsidian. I'm at Other Side Entertainment.
Someone said, what's the background music? It's so cool.
It's Hades, the Hades soundtrack, the video game.
Oh, okay. Felix says, Dave, your interview with Steven really inspired me, especially after 8 years into this and at 31 years old.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. The thing I really liked about the feedback from that interview is a lot of artists, including like people I work with, they were saying that it helped them feel a little bit better about continuing to grow as an artist and not be so afraid of everything. And I love that because I honestly think that's like the worst takeaway from the AI is to stop yourself from working or get so paralyzed with fear that you're so focused on the conversation about AI that you cease to grow as an artist. And that's the thing that I would fight against with everything. It's like, if you don't want this thing to be like, number one, I don't think it's going to replace all artists. I do think there's always going to be a world in which artists exist because art is an expression of a person and individual ideas and all this. It's not just an output of a singular product. So the idea that you can just mimic somebody and still retain the heart and everything from that person, it just doesn't work that way. And anybody with a trained eye can see that. And I think it's just kind of an ignorant statement from people who don't understand art. And if you let yourself be so afraid of AI, then yeah, I mean, you're just allowing that to kind of be the case. It's like that's the inevitability then, if you let this thing crush you to the point where you don't push yourself or grow or try new things or feel like it's all pointless and start to get hopeless with it all. It's like, then yes, you are making that future a reality for yourself. But if you fight, you aim for the top, you try your best to stand out as an artist and grow and don't settle for being mediocre or aiming for that middle goal, then there's a chance that you can make it. Art was super hard to get into before AI, you know? I mean, it's always going to be difficult. But people are starting to get a trained eye, like normal people are starting to get a trained eye who don't do art at all, and they understand what the AI stuff is, and you see that all the time. Like, I'll be on Instagram and I'll be reading the comments under like an obviously AI post, and people would be like, stop with this AI bullshit, looks like crap, and like all that. Like, even if the image isn't like offensively bad or with like messed up hands, but people can smell the AI-ness of it, the staleness, the fakeness. And
Did you see that? Did you see that video of the horse calendar that was like AI horse calendar?
No,
They
I
don't
didn't.
like what that means is like they're not hiring a horse photographer, and how weird is that? Like these people don't have many opportunities. Like
Oh, I
just
know.
fund it. Like why are you doing this? And the horses like have 6 legs or whatever. Like obviously terrible.
Yeah, it's just sleep near.
Fractica said, Dave, when you were in intermediate range with your art, what pushed you over the edge into the next level of skill, if anything?
Just head down, like just working, like near constant work. Like I used to say to not really like push yourself, because you don't want to be unhealthy with your work and, you know, develop bad habits where you're crunching and missing out on life and all that. But I'd be lying to you if I said that I didn't do that to get ahead in my life. I did do that. I did that all the time. I was working so hard constantly to do something. And I don't think there's really any other way to get to the top of anything that you want to do, especially if there's a large amount of people behind you that are doing it. And I think Steven Zapata, when I was on his stream, or his YouTube, he made a really good point. It was something that I used to think too back in the day. It was like, every time that you feel yourself wanting to give up, you have to realize that that's a moment in time that every other artist felt as well. And if you're the artist that decides that you won't give up, that you're just going to keep going, then you've just stepped ahead of all those other people. Like, not that it's a competition and you need to crush people or anything like that, but the reality
But if we're using it
is,
as like a benchmark of success, of like, oh, that's that person's level. Then,
yeah, it's like then you're going to make it. Like, you deciding to keep going in that moment is a decision that a lot of people didn't make, and they gave up and they just kind of decided this wasn't for them. And every time you hit that wall and you feel that, you go, all right, I'll just keep doing it. I will do it. And and really, like, you hit these milestone markers over and over, because you just keep on trying to get better and better. And if you really want to do it and you really love it and you fall in love with the process of improvement and making mistakes and just seeking growth, then you will eventually hit these points where you're like, oh wow, something just clicked. Like, I don't know what that was, but something just hit me so hard, like something worked. Like, holy shit, I had like a big breakthrough. And that didn't happen to me all the time. It would happen to me like maybe 3 times a year, 2 times a year, whatever. But they would be profound enough for me that they felt like, oh, that was a major step forward. That was something that I recognized as like a big hurdle that I just overcame. And that was always the motivation I needed when I felt like giving up. I'd hit those marks and be like, oh, okay, maybe I am doing the right thing because just through sheer repetition, I found this new thing, and this has like rejuvenated, my whole approach to this.
Alma says, hi, when you'll have your issues ready to crowdfund, when will it be?
For this, or just Steve? Because
I don't know.
Steve is a
It says your
while.
issues.
Hopefully this year, this will be done. I'm hoping that I'll have like a really limited run book that'll have like the comic. It'll have the black and white and color version, and then at least this is my idea right now. And then it'll have all the other Starvale works that I've done as a part of it. And then I'll hopefully be able to use the income from that really short, small run comic to fund the bigger Starvale comic. That's the plan right now.
John Silva says, awesome to see you're still doing comic stuff, Dave. Your style matured nicely. Just stopping by to say hi.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I'm trying.
The Rails says, what's your canvas size / settings for this comic?
This is 400 DPI at 9,000 by 12,000 pixels. So it's pretty large. That's because I want to print it at like large format. Like I don't know. I always forget what you call those when comic creators do like a huge comic print. But that's the kind of book that I want to do, like a very large size one, so that you can look at all the detail. I try to think of the things that I liked when I was a kid, and that's like a big part of like what got me into collecting like art books, is having those really big like portfolio size looking collections of the work, and also being able to look at the inks alone, because I was a big like I like it without colors person, so I always liked just staring at the inks or the pencils. So I want to offer like all of that in one book.
Actual Dracula says, are you doing all the coloring in Krita as well?
No, I do this part, like rendering it all out, and then I'll do some like light painting in Krita of those pages, but the majority of the book I do in Photoshop, and then bring it back over into Krita and add to whatever I've done. I wonder how I'm gonna do this, because now this looks really weird, because that's a pretty small area, and if I start drawing these giant people, it's gonna look strange. Unless I make it all look like a tapestry or something, which is kind of what I wanted to do. But I can't tell if that will read.
I told Dave that I wanted to make a yoga mat.
Yeah, of my lady crying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's try it. Let's just try and make it look like it's not
idea.
a one-on. I mean, because it's not going to be like a literal image. I want it to be a tapestry style thing because of the giant, lady in the background. Like, she's not literally in a, scene. It's supposed to be just and maybe I'll make it like a carving or something like that on a wall, and I'll make all these like details in it, and I'll light it and do like a spot painting, like you paint it on gold or something like that, and like chip it in places maybe. So I don't know how else it would make sense anyway.
Like gold foil over something? Is that what you mean? Like flaking off like that?
No, I mean like if like how statues, they're when you go to like the museum, they just look like they don't have pupils, they don't have eyes, nothing like that. They just look like statues, like just whatever, white statues. But they used to be painted, like in a lot of cases.
Oh yeah.
So I want to have these be like carvings on a wall, all intricate and then have there be like painting on top of a metal base or something. Maybe. We'll see how
Okay.
any of it looks. I'm going to play with a few different approaches.
Cool. I like it. Koteri Inc. says, Yo, Dave, how many pages of storyboards do you manage to draw per day? Albeit, it's so easy to just breeze through them. I find myself slowing down a lot to focus on shots. How about you?
When I do storyboard stuff, I tend to do most of my thinking there. So I do spend a bit more time. Honestly, like when I'm doing something like you see right now, this is more just like execution. So like all the idea work is down. Like I don't need to do any like subsequent, like even me just doing that thing where I was talking about what materials is going to be on and all that. That's like more thought than I usually put into this stage. Like everything's already been thought out by the time I'm here, generally speaking. So I'm kind of on autopilot. I'm just like inking. So most of my planning and shots and whatever, like that's what gets the most time. So not that I spend a ton of time on storyboards, but I spend more time like doing really rough sketches, thinking about poses and a feeling and all that sort of stuff. The same thing with like just sketching out any kind of composition or comic page. Like I always think of the general feeling of, you know, the scene or whatever, and that's my like primary focus. And then this stuff is like, it's just easier for me because I've done it so many times. Like now that I understand like light and all that, it's like I don't really think about this stuff so much. So this part's the simpler thing. So just to kind of give you an idea of like, now that I've thought about what this is going to be laid on top of, or how I'm going to be showing this scene, I'm going to make sure that I make it pretty obvious that this isn't meant to be a whole scene. So I'm going to introduce some like flatter looking ornate carvings, just to make it very obvious that this isn't supposed to be a perspective shot at something that's actually happening.
Errol says, when you were starting out, what did you do for practice? Did you have any particular artist you referenced?
I referenced a lot of artists. I looked at I had like my favorite classic painters like Ilya Repin and, you know, like all the favorites really. I mean, like of everybody. But for anatomy, I would look at like Bern Hogarth. I would look at Loomis, and I just would download PDF books. But this was before it was very easy to get a lot of different resources, so I kind of was relegated to finding books and, you know, PDF uploads of books. So if I were doing it now, I would look at people like Manga Materials for anatomy, and I really I just kind of made a general study schedule for myself where I just made sure that every morning I was spending at least 2 hours a day on studies, whether they be anatomy or painting from life, things like that. And I just stuck to that routine, and I made sure to stay regular with that.
Miguel says, hey Kim, Dave, what's your go-to way to discover new music?
I mean, the nice thing about using like Spotify is their whole, you know, related artists, and then the endless
That's how
shuffle. But I mean, also
and
just
then I
like
Shazam
social
a lot of
media.
things I hear. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really ask anybody. I just more or less like stumble across stuff that I like.
Yeah, and what did we just listen to recently? Something that's like old that neither of us have heard before.
Yeah, it's the lady that did all the songs
Twin
for
Peaks.
Twin Peaks. I'd never really listened to
It's so
any
good.
of those songs with lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
I only really saw like the Twin Peaks like theme song, but yeah, we went through and just were like, oh, this is really good, and we were just listening to those the past few days.
Mm-hmm. Dave's starting to look like a gentleman cowboy with his mustache, or maybe your neighborhood old-fashioned barbershop owner.
That's true.
I love the mustache.
I'm keeping the mustache for Kim. It's the reason I have a
He's
mustache.
in his dad era, everybody. He's a hot dad now, so he's got to have a mustache. Um, he put on his first high-waisted pair of pants today.
Yeah, it's the best thing for my silhouette that I've seen.
If that's not a
Speaking of
dad, I don't know
art
what
and
it is.
design, my body needs high-waisted pants. That's what I found out. I was
But they look
composed
good.
wrong before.
But they look amazing. Julian says a day rate of 1,500 USD seems insane to me. I just finished a contract where I felt greedy working at like 300 Canadian.
Yeah, it just depends on what you're doing. I mean, you have to talk to people too. Like whenever you go into a new industry, like it's very important to ask questions like, what's the day rate for this place? Like if you know anybody in the art world who's doing a similar job to you, it's really important to make sure that you're not undercutting everybody, because you're going to kind of mess it up for a lot of people if you do that. You want to make sure that you kind of know what a company is willing to spend, because they have a marketing budget. And if they're spending, or whatever it is, they have a budget for any of the things that they're hiring for. And if you go in and you undercut that budget, then they just pocket that money. It's not like, there's not a guilty thing where you're asking too much. The people that you work for, if they're people that are just hiring out to get somebody to work on a product, then they're not emotionally linked to that money. They're not going to be like, oh my God, you asked for that. Look at this selfish son of a bitch. Thinks they can get everything they want. Like, no, they're not doing that.
Yeah,
They're just yes, no, whatever.
And if they approached you, yeah, like I'm sure they're willing to negotiate.
Yeah. So
They
all
want
you can do,
you know?
yeah, like the worst thing that can happen in most cases is they just go, no, could you do this? Is if they really want you, they're going to, push back and say like, that's outside our budget. Could you work for this much? And then whatever that is. But like I had to really get out of my own way with that sort of thing, because I was like, I had that perspective that you have for a long time, where you're saying like I felt bad about asking for this amount of money. It's like, yeah, but if you don't ask for that amount of money, then they just have that amount of money still, like potentially, depending on the project. But I mean, you're just missing out on that money.
Dave knew when he was like, he thought he was like asking, because they're like, well, what do you think? And when they agree to it too quickly, you're like, oh, I could ask for more.
Yeah, right. When people are just like, yeah, sure,
that's fine.
You just go, fuck, I messed up,
I didn't
didn't
ask
I?
for enough.
So I always try to make sure that if I don't know, or I'm just kind of like guessing, that I ask other people, like, is this appropriate?
KTHXPLF says, Dave, regarding prints, should I do my drawings in RGB and then convert to CMYK? And what canvas size and resolution would be ideal for companies such as Imprint and Redbubble?
If you're going through Imprint and Redbubble, it doesn't really matter. You can work in RGB. They were asking about sizes through those companies?
Yeah, canvas size and resolution would be ideal.
I think like with specifically Imprint, you have to, I think like they have like dimension limitations, so it can't be over like 6600 pixels by like 10,000 something, So on either side, it's like wide and tall, basically. But you don't have to worry about doing any sort of like special color modifications for the most part when it comes to those printers. One thing that you do need to do, like let's say that you wanted to make a comic like this, you then, after you design out your comic, you want to make sure that when you switch your colors over to CMYK for print, that the colors you chose actually register and work. Because like when we were doing Steve Lichman on the first book, I had already done a ton of work on the pages, and we switched everything over to CMYK and realized that Steve's color didn't come across, like his actual skin color didn't come across for the whole book. And that is obviously a huge problem because he's the main character. So I had to go back through and individually adjust the color of Steve
because
in
you
every
didn't put it on
panel.
one layer, because you didn't think to do that. That wasn't like even a thought, right?
Yep. So from that point on, we planned ahead, tested every color tone that went into the book for like the second book, and learned a big lesson. So if you're doing something like that, then you want to test your colors. But if you're doing paintings and selling prints, you don't really have to on those sites. Like you don't even have to switch them to CMYK when you upload. But yeah.
Lan says, how about people selling AI art at conventions?
I don't know. That's so sad.
Yeah.
I would hope that somebody would put a stop to that, but I know that until, people have a clear eye for that sort of thing, it's not going to happen.
I mean, also, not everybody can just get a booth at a convention.
Well, you can if you pay money.
Yeah, some, but
You have to ask. You got to be like, can I have a booth? And a lot of artists that are, like there were artists at like New York Comic Con that weren't like, they're not all like super famous people. There's people who are also just individuals selling stuff.
mm-hmm.
I mean, and you would really need somebody who knew them or vetted them or whatever to make it so that wasn't something that happened. But I mean, how would you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Like some art just looks AI-ish because AI is trained off of that work, which is so unfortunate. That's probably like the saddest thing from AI, is that some people's work has been just borrowed so much, or just borrowed is kind, stolen so much that it's now like ubiquitous with the AI look.
I'm really behind, so if I haven't read your question yet, just drop it again. I'm gonna start back. I had to go all the way down.
That's okay.
Are printed yoga mats a thing? I think they are, but if they aren't, I want that one as like a custom one. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing this whole book.
Vincent Sanchez says, yeah. Vincent Sanchez says, hello. Are you teaching or just drawing?
I mean, I don't know. If you think I'm teaching, then I'm teaching something. I'm answering questions.
Yeah.
It's similar.
Let me see. Thomas Walker says, "Hey Dave, I'm listening to this stream at work and now have a semi-chub. Any advice as how to enjoy these streams without that happening?"
Just get really bloated before you watch it. Just eat a bunch of carbs. Just get
You'll
as
be too
bloated as
tired
possible, and yeah, you won't get hard. It'll stop
too
that in
tired,
its
like
tracks.
food coma. You wouldn't, yeah. Your testosterone would be low. This wouldn't happen.
Yeah, lower that T.
Kateri Inc. says, "Explain this panel, please. What's going on in this exquisite tapestry panel?"
Well, it is this panel about the reverence the people of this planet used to have for this dying god on the left here. And it's showing sort of like the peaks and valleys of the lifetime of this world. And this is the beginning of that, showing like how beautiful it once was. That's essentially what's happening.
You can't tell if this is a serious question. This feels like a joke question.
Probably.
I'm gonna read it, okay?
Yeah.
Timothy Jake says, "As a very good artist myself, I like to create, just like you. I find myself dragging to become art director, management role, in parentheses, in big game studio, and yet I want to get even better, pay, in parentheses, move up. Especially as a man running a family, how do you come to term with who you are as an artist without being a, quote, big shot? How, as wife, Kimberly, think about it?"
I don't think that's a joke.
I can't tell. Okay, I was like, I can't tell. I was
I think
like,
this person is earnestly asking that question. I will say
that
this:
you're a big shot? That's very sweet.
The reason that I mean, it's like you're not gonna move up a lot if you call yourself a great artist. If you believe, I mean, like there's definitely something to be said for having belief in yourself, you know, like that's good, but you also need to be very humble. Like you have to look at other art, and I know that you're kind of saying that in what you said of like you want to move up, you want to do something, you want to get better, but I think the first thing that you got to do is change your mindset there.
How do you
It's
want
like,
to get better if you already think you're great?
yeah, exactly. And like the thing with me is like I'd never look at myself as a big shot. Like there's so many artists that I look up to. There's so many people that have, you know, like amazing skills that eclipse mine. Like I have so much exposure to so many different people in my industry that I never look, you know, I never look at myself and think like, God doesn't get any better than this, does it? Like,
Yeah, that's crazy.
like I just don't
That's a
have that
crazy
outlook.
thought. Well,
I mean,
what's
it's
that
crazy
saying? The more you
for
know,
us
the less.
too.
What is it? The more you know, the more you don't know.
Yeah,
Is that the saying? You like the more that you learn, it's less likely for you to feel that confident. So that to me, like saying that feels very young and like reckless, a little bit immature. If you feel like I'm great, there's nothing more, you know?
yeah, it's
That doesn't feel like
definitely
somebody who's open to
it's
learning more and to continue learning,
an
because
attitude that'll hold you back.
that is life. Yeah.
You want to stay
Um,
humble.
and continue learning. There is absolutely no point in my life, just because I'm not in school, that I don't want to be pushing myself. Dave and I made resolutions this year, and mine, like, I don't know, 3 of them were just to like better myself, read
Yeah,
more,
we
be
have
more learned,
weekly meetings, and
you
we just
know?
have goals of who we want to be by the end of the year, and we hold each other accountable until that goal is met. And the only way
But
to
we're both
achieve those
challenging
goals
ourselves.
is you have to be humble. You have to have humility and look at yourself and realize
Mhm.
that you aren't where you want to be. You aren't at this final end goal. And with art, like it's not like you're, like, I would never look at myself and say like I'm a great artist. I look at myself and I say, like, you're making a good effort. It's like, but is this what you want to do? Like, when I actively like analyze who I am right now in my process, like what you're seeing at this very moment is me trying to address issues that I've had with myself forever, because I haven't had the chance to do a ton of personal work like this, and I needed to in order to really accomplish that goal of who I wanted to be when I started. Like, I didn't, like, did I set out making art so that I could make money? Like, is that why I did it in the first place? No, but I let that be some form of like positive, like, oh, you did it, you're doing something, yeah. And I got so far away from the point, and the point was that I wanted to be an artist who makes things for themselves, who accomplishes things that they didn't think they were capable of, who makes a ton of mistakes and grows and continues to learn and just doesn't give in when things feel comfortable, and leans into that comfort. And also go back to the thing of, you didn't get into this for money. So like, stop using that as a way to tell yourself that like you're doing well, or that you've done the thing that you want to do, because that is a way to slow myself down and not actively accomplish my goals. And
Well, I was
having like
telling Dave
very
today,
honest conversations is helpful.
yeah, and I was telling Dave today, like he had a very recent offer that this is like one of the first times in 10 years that I've seen him shocked at an offer, where it's like, whoa, I was shooting high, but I didn't realize I was shooting that high. Like I was aiming for something, manifesting, and I just told him, I was like, I feel like that's crazy, because I feel like that makes so much sense that this happened, because 10 years ago I thought you were successful. It had nothing to do with like money, being a big shot. And I feel like in my eyes, Dave's always been successful. So I don't feel like, you know, every step is just like being successful in the learning process and like going after what he wants. And also encouraging people to do the same thing, not just like other artists, but everybody. He's very like motivating. So I feel like that's where he's like found his success, I'm not looking at like how much he's getting paid per job, or how many, likes his posts get or anything like that for any type of success. Like he's always been successful because he's always kept trying.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like success is just something you can measure by the amount of difficult things that you attempt. And
Mm.
I'm trying to do more of that and be braver about what I decide to spend my time on. And this is one of those things, is to just do, stories that are all your own.
Mm-hmm. Nemanja says, are you guys considering playing Baldur's Gate 3? We are considering. We've downloaded it, bought it, have not played it yet.
Yeah, I just want to be
It's
done
so
with
hard
goals.
finding time.
Yeah, and honestly, like, now that I'm so focused on this stuff, and we both have like our own things we want to do, like I feel like I'm back to thinking like that's a waste of my time, which is unfortunate because I really wanted to play. But I also am getting older and I really want to do all the things I said I'd do, and I can't let myself down. I just can't.
No. And then have you had a chance to play Alan Wake 2 yet, Dave?
I played a little bit of it, like when it came out. played, I don't know, maybe 15 hours or something like that.
Well,
It's
that's
good.
because like the studio was on break for Christmas and like everyone was taking the time off. There's like it would be
Yeah.
crazy if you were like working through all of that and nobody else was, you know?
Hmm.
What? Riley Easter said, some goofy shit happened to me the other day. I was trying on glasses at the store, and a lady working there came up to me and said, "Ooh, very Malcolm X," and I had no idea how to respond.
That's really funny.
Funny thing to have happened to you.
This panel is wild. When I zoom out, it
Dave,
looks
how
cool.
would you go about painting chainmail without photo bashing or a ready-made brush?
Implying it. You want to
You just paint
imply
it.
chainmail. You want to make sure that
Paint
you're
it.
not doing like all the detail of it. Don't do like literal
Every
chainmail.
chain.
Like think about
Every
what.
chain needs to be painted.
No, stop. Think about everything you see when you look at chainmail. Like, what are you actually looking at when you see like chainmail on somebody? Are you seeing the individual links, or are you seeing just the highlight areas? And I honestly think you need to kind of you need to like do the broader area first and then build on top of that, and then like little highlight, you know, I don't know if you're looking at the screen right now, but I'm doing little like C's in the air. It's like you just kind of catch the highlight where it's, you know, catching on the chainmail, but you don't draw all the links. Like look at the way like great painters paint knights. Like look at like Waterhouse or something like that, and check out how they painted a knight with chainmail on, and like what does that chainmail actually look like? You can get a better idea of what you should do when you're trying to paint that stuff.
Hey Dave, I'm having trouble with Chrome Brush Large. When I see you use it on streams, it's so smooth. However, mine lags a lot and doesn't shade as soft as yours. I'd love to use it as smooth as you present it. Are your pen settings on default? Mine also might also have to do with artboard size DPI and possibly having a powerful computer.
Yeah, it might be that. I mean, I upgraded my computer to the M1 MacBook Pro, so that's what I'm using right now. And that sped things up a lot for me, because before that, like even my Clip Studio stuff was slowing down, and just for the amount of work that I was doing at the time, I was like, I just can't have this happening. I need a fast computer. This is ridiculous. So I did have to upgrade because of that. But I tend to use like a semi-firm approach with like the Wacom pressure settings. And then I'm not sure if I changed the brush settings within Krita itself at any point. I think I like experimented with that. I may or may not have kept those intact and am using them currently. I would say to just experiment with all of that and see if you can find something that works. But I've heard people say that Krita's pretty notorious with how it's you know, demanding on a computer. But this brush also, like, I'm doing so much more with this than I was when I first started. Like if you go back and, you know, like if you look at like my Twitter, you can go back pretty far to when I first started using this brush and see, you know, the difference between what I'm doing currently and what I was doing then, to get an idea. Because I've improved well enough to like see a night and day difference between the output. And a lot of it had to do with me just kind of learning how to use it and getting accustomed to how to kind of handle the pressure of my own hand when I'm working, let alone the settings. Like, I've had the same settings the whole time, and I've had very different results. So like, I was looking at people who worked in Krita and being like, how the fuck are you doing that? Like, that's so insane, like what you're able to do with it. And then I just stuck with it, and I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna keep doing this over and over until I start to figure it out. And then given a decent chunk of time, I'm finally feeling pretty confident with it. But yeah.
Nick Ward says,
well, hold on. I was gonna say that all this stuff in here, by the way, like when I talk about implying chainmail, like all of this is implied. Like, it might look like you can kind of read what's happening here, but none of it's like really detailed out, and I'm not showing literally all the different bits and pieces of the design here, but it's enough of an implication to kind of give the feel of what I'm going for. And because it's a comic, I need to ride the line of like overworking versus you just need to read this thing. So yeah.
Did you explain what's happening in this panel already?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Nick Ward says, hey Dave, what happened to your guy? What happened to your guy, Dan Levisi? Do you still keep in touch?
No, I mean, we hadn't talked for like a super long time, but we used to talk a lot. The thing, like, with anybody is that you just kind of fall out after a while. And I haven't talked to literally like anybody in the art community for, honestly, like that Steven Zapata interview that you watched with me, like that one was probably the first time I've done anything with another artist in 10 years or like right around there. Like, you haven't seen me do interviews or anything like right around that amount of time. I just kind of fell out of the art community in like a big way for like so long. And only like recently am I starting to get back into it. I just so didn't want to be involved with any sort of like drama or anything in that world. And I felt like it was so much healthier for me to not get involved in anything. And that's sort of the thing I was saying about AI, where it's like, if you let these things capture you, you cease to evolve, you know? And then the future you're predicting for yourself or dreading is becoming true. And I used to like get involved in my like own community's stuff, or like, you know, like if you're on Discord right now, you might be involved in any number of like little things like, oh, did you see that this artist used AI in their work, and like let's do like a big witch hunt for him. And just don't get involved. Just keep your head down and keep working. Don't take part in all these things, because it just slows down your journey. And I felt like I was doing that a lot. And the healthiest thing for me was to just kind of get to work and have a life outside of the computer.
ID Vasquez says, also, Kim, I saw your cooking stream the other day. Any great meals lately that fed your beautiful Dave?
Kim's always making great food. She's an incredible cook.
Do you want to
for
tell them?
anybody who doesn't know.
Do you want to tell them what I made for my birthday?
Well, Kimmy made a duck Wellington. It was pretty
Well,
incredible.
that was like the other night.
Yeah, I mean, but that's crazy. A duck Wellington.
That was good. And then I made, what did I make? I made ribs, barbecue ribs. That was good.
Yeah.
But I made some molasses cookies, like crinkle cookies from scratch, and then they were a little overbaked, so I just put them in a food processor and made a crust for my cheesecake for my birthday.
But she makes like all sorts of stuff, like homemade pho, like all types of I mean, really like a lot of fancy like cakes lately that you've been doing for, different things. And then she crushed a whole like Christmas dinner for our family, and like everything she makes is so good. Like you know, I keep telling our kids, I'm like, you guys are so lucky. Like, you don't even understand. Like, my family used to eat like English muffins for breakfast, and that was it, and like meatloaf, and like we never had anything fancy or nice. And like Kim's like, oh, I hate having the same thing all the time. So let's just make this crazy variety of like a million different dinners all the time from like all around the world, like Peruvian chicken and like, oh man, just
Pad Thai.
yeah, pad thai, and like everything's from scratch. It's just absurd.
I did a lot of UK like roast dinners recently in the cozy holidays.
Yeah. Very lucky.
Make bolos. I gotta do that soon, actually.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorites. Portuguese bolos. If you don't know what that is, it's incredibly good. It's like a breakfast muffin,
Bolos levados.
but very very nice. It's sort of like a mixture of like a I don't know what you'd call it, like a bread English muffin type thing, but it's like a, I don't know, not cakey, but thicker.
It's like a sweet English muffin without the cornmeal on the bottom.
Yeah, it's very good.
Not as dry either. As like an English muffin. Like a little bit more like doughy, pillowy. Riley says that you do weekly wife assessments. Those are our meetings. Checking in. She doing her wifely duties.
Yeah.
Someone said that I was roasting somebody. Is it because I said, "Is this a joke?" question? I thought it felt a little bit sarcastic.
Like if Kim is
So
on the
hard.
stream, it's inevitable that even if she's not trying to, she's gonna end up making fun of somebody.
Sorry.
It's just the way it is.
I'm
I
so
bring
sorry.
Kim on to alienate. There's too many people here.
No, I'm so sorry. The tone just seemed sarcastic. That was my bad for reading it that way. Let me see. Okay, I'm going back down to the bottom. Bolos. Bolos, not two L's. Not boyos. EJ Fed said, "You have a cooking stream?" I don't have a cooking stream. I was on Instagram and I went live. And I think that there were so few people in there that it just kicked me out at one point.
Stop using
It's
the
not a
bandwidth.
stream. It's not a channel. It's not. Yeah. Unless there's
She
a
could,
time
though.
limit, but
She could.
I was making what was I making? I was making my 3-year-old's birthday cake, but then I was also doing braised short ribs or something. I can't remember.
What, on stream?
And I was talking and I was searing the meat and nobody could hear me because it's just like all the time.
Yeah, you need a professional
It's not
streamer setup.
anything to tune into. Yeah, like it's not great, I promise. Okay, I'm going back down. Let me see. Yeah, recycled cookies because it was, it was too crunchy. It was like a little bit just over baked,
Yeah, it's smart.
but it was good and it tasted really good. It was like a graham cracker, and then it was
Yeah,
delicious.
this is gonna work really well. Like once these colors are on here, I'm going to be able to make everything pop and differentiate between all of these different pieces. There's so many different elements going on in this illustration that it could be overwhelming. So I want to make sure that when I go in and I do the final colors in Photoshop and Krita, that I break up all the spaces between. But I think usually a good sign for me is that if I can still read it like in this black and white stage, then it's gonna be fine. So I feel good about it. These were always the pages I feared the most because they were like so detailed that they always were like, oh no, is this gonna be like way too much? But thanks to this Krita brush, I'm really able to imply a lot and not worry about that. What were you saying?
Mitch said, so if I find someone who can cook a duck Wellington, I might have a chance at making world-class art. Got it.
That's true. That's true. You definitely get better.
Did you purchase?
What?
Dave, which laptop did you purchase? I thought you had the Mac Studio.
I do have the Mac Studio, but I also have a MacBook Pro. And the MacBook Pro is the one that I'm using right now.
You absolutely need to start a cooking stream. Nicholas Huddleston says, I remember our Crimson Dagger darts. Antoine, when Dave would stream or make a video, me and my other roommates in art college used to shout out, one of us, one of us. What is that? What's Antoine?
I don't know, Antoine. Antoine's talking about... are you talking about the dude who worked at Riot? I'm not really sure I get the reference. Any other questions?
I'm looking.
Okay. This is coming together so much faster than I thought it would. Oh, I've only been on here for an hour and 15. I'm speeding up. God, that first stream I did, I did like an hour just on like one corner. Oh, thank
Thomas
goodness.
Walker says, if I don't get my question answered, I'll commit a hate crime. Okay, put your question in the chat again. I'll get to it, I promise.
Yeah, tag me in it. At Dave or at Kim.
Or tag me. I'm reading them, yeah.
Yeah, at Kim.
Kimberly.
At Kimberly.
Kimberly. Daniel says, what tip could you give for start to make money out of your own personal art besides the commercial works for clients?
If you're doing like a story or something like that, it's a little easier. I don't know your situation or what you were thinking, but for me, it's just a matter of getting it in front of people who are outside of my immediate community. Because like you can think like, oh, I'm going to sell to other artists because those are the people who follow me, because I feel like most people who are artists generally start out with a following of people that are like peers. But not a lot of artists buy other artists' stuff, and I don't mean that in like a negative way. I just mean that the majority of your income is going to come from non-artists who are just people who like what you're doing. And one of the main ways to kind of get to them is to be on platforms that aren't, you know, artist platforms primarily, or, you know, outside of Discords or whatever. So it's like being on, like, unfortunately or fortunately, it depends on your outlook. If you want, like, be on TikTok, be on like Reddit, be in a bunch of places where you can reach a broader audience and show your stuff. Like that.
Like anyone can see.
Yeah, like my friend Miles Johnson, who's he's like a famous artist now. But I remember when he first started getting rolling, he was posting on like Reddit and just sites that weren't art related and putting up his images for just people. And I remember talking to him about it, and he was saying how like he always appreciated just people who were non-artists, like their feedback on it. And those people got really interested in his work, and then he started gaining a bigger and bigger audience on his social media pages. And now he has like 1 million followers, or well over that. But obviously his work speaks for itself. But I think it's important to show your work to people who would be the buyers of your work. So wherever you can, just like get out in front of them. And also places like conventions are really good for that, where you can network and you can have a booth and like theme your booth around whatever you're doing for yourself, and just start to kind of spread the word organically. Like, that always helps. And then just be consistent.
Lan says, "Hi Dave, I would love to do a fan art of sexy Garfield. Would you be okay with this?"
As the creator of Garfield, I would be angry. Garfield is my character. Yes, you can do whatever you want.
Whitney says, these detailed drawings kind of remind me of those insane underpaintings that Koro does for his latest oil paintings.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Yeah, I love Koro. Justin Koro Kaufman. Follow his work. Really amazing stuff.
Beautiful. And super nice people too. Him and his wife are very, very nice people.
Yeah. Support friends.
Gavin says, my New Year's resolution is to complete a short comic and get it printed just for myself. Do you have any advice on the storyboarding process?
On the storyboarding process, I mean, write it first. Well, it depends on how you think. If you think in pictures and you like listen to music and you work through your stories that way and whatever, then maybe do that whole thing, that brainstorming process first. And then for me, my favorite thing to do with writing is to write in like a shitty notebook first. Just write everything out in like pen or whatever. Just make it feel like it's not permanent, and then build up from there. It's like start to refine, lines, line by line or whatever, and just kind of start to piece together bits of the story and go through and have it be messy. Like highlight parts that you feel like, okay, I'm gonna keep this part, whatever, and then just kind of create a system for yourself of starting from a sketch in writing form and working your way all to the final, rough draft, final draft. For me, the very last step is putting it into some sort of, Word document or whatever. I use OpenOffice only because I can write on it, but I mean, there's a number of things where you can do that. You can do that in like Notes on Apple. Right, I think you can, right? You can write in that. But I do this. I take my whole script and then I just break it down into sections of like what's what, like where the lines go and what page number. And then I just break those down and then storyboard based off that. But yeah, it's just like a really quick system for me to kind of get everything lined up and start to have an idea of how it's all going to come together.
John says, when making illustrations for a client with an established IP, is it extremely important to get their designs 100% accurate, or do you find that you can omit some details and still be great?
It really depends. It depends on the characters and if I'm working on Diablo, which I've been working on, it's like when I do something for them, I don't really worry so much about being perfect because there's so much detail that I can imply a lot of it and not be like dead on accurate. And then when it comes to, you know, like if it's a character like Sonic the Hedgehog, then it's so simple that you need to be accurate. You might be able to exaggerate for style purposes, but generally speaking, you're going to need to be pretty close to the source or it won't read right. And yeah, it's sort of a client by client basis. Like when I worked for the Baldur's Gate 3 Larian Studios team doing some marketing work, I had to be accurate, but not like as far as anything outside of the main character. I could kind of imply that, like in the scene that I did, there was a bunch of like dead characters all over the ground, and when I was working on that, they didn't need to be perfect. They just needed to feel like they're from the same world. And I wasn't super focused on like, oh, this is dead on to some reference they gave me. I just more or less would wing certain aspects of it and keep other things like very familiar and, you know, close to the source.
Inka says, do you have any brush advice?
I don't have brush advice necessarily. I will say like it's about kind of knowing where you can imply detail and lose stuff. Like if I'm going for being like as quick as possible, like if you look at the page right up here above me, like in the shadows and in every one of the shadows on these inks, which is technically just brushwork, it's all implied. I don't really detail anything in the shadows. That's one way to speed things up in your paintings, is to make sure that the same thing that would happen in real life. You walk into a room, you shine a light on somebody in the room. Do you register everything in that space that isn't lit? Then you don't need to draw everything. You don't need to render everything. You just render the parts where you would naturally focus as a person. Obviously, this is like a style thing. You can use that if you want. You don't have to. There's certain things that are more cartoony that wouldn't imply work. But if you're a painter and or even an inker or whoever, it's like then you want to think like that. Like a lot of like noir comics are like that, where they leave a ton up to the imagination and they lean on things being implied. And that's what I'm trying to do here is make sure that I'm thinking about real lighting while I'm working these out and not so focused on doing a detailed line drawing. I don't care that they're perfect lines. I want the main character there to read like it'll, you know, a more literal cartoonish character. And then I want everything else to feel more like a background in an animated film where it's painted. And so I don't really care too much about that. And then I'll have some in-betweens. Like there's a cat character in this that's with this little boy. And I think they're on this page. No, they're not. Okay, I don't have that page pulled up. But he's down here in the corner. So I have him be a mix of the two. He's like a mix of the background being implied and the main kid having like straight up like inked lines looking very anime-ish. So yeah, it's just dependent on what you're trying to accomplish. But that would be my recommendation with brushes, is to know when you're doing too much and how, if you're working smart with your stuff. It's like in implying things rather than going so overboard with your details that you end up making your piece feel stiff and lifeless. Look at like Jamie Jones or, you know, even like Craig Mullins. Like so much of their work is very implied, yet it's incredibly well done and realistic at the same time. it doesn't, and not that I'm saying it needs to be realistic, but they do a lot with color, temperature, values, shapes.
Mitch says, I got a question. Dave, would you ever self-fund any projects like making a game out of Starvale or even Shark and Skull? Skull and Shark.
Self-fund? It's hard to say. It depends on what it is. It's like, we might do that with like Steve Lichman, like animated shorts or something down the road. We might do that, but that's about the extent of what we've thought about as far as any sort of like funding for something. But a lot of times the funding itself helps market what you're trying to do. So it can be a benefit to try and raise money, because then there's already a group waiting for that thing.
Thomas Walker says, I have only ever used Photoshop and Wacom Intuos for my digital art. I have never tried any other hardware or software. Am I handicapping myself?
Depends what you're trying to do. I think that Clip Studio and Krita have certain aspects to them that I like way more than Photoshop. Photoshop for me is more like a tool to color and do like adjustments in and some texture painting and things. But most of like the fundamental drawing work and rendering and things at the very beginning are all done in Krita and sometimes in Clip Studio. So those are my preferred programs, especially just for like starting an image.
J Ram says, oh, nice, a stream with Amy. Nice to have you back. Wilson says, hi Dave, how come you draw complicated stuff like that while talking at the same time? Are the idea already in your mind before you draw, or just flowing itself while you're drawing?
I've already drawn a lot of this stuff before, like especially these characters. Like a lot of this stuff that you're seeing is stuff that I've already designed at some point. I'll show you. I think I have something I can pull up. Yeah. So this was like a design document that I had put together of just like a bunch of ideas of what I could do. This is from a long time ago, so they're bad drawings right now. Or at least to me they're bad. But like, I designed all the outfits out and I just kind of have them in my head while I'm working on this. But in terms of regular like design things, like the little circle over here on the right side, like something like that is just kind of automated. Like I've done it so many times and I have like an idea of what I want in the Baroque architecture style. I just kind of wing it.
Johnny Pearson says, would you let me make a Steve Lichman Halloween latex mask?
Sure, as long as you're not selling them everywhere. Absolutely.
Yeah, as long as it's just for you. Practice says, Steve, how did you balance life dating with your practice when you were head down studying, or didn't you? I'm cool giving that up and allocating practice. I'm just curious if you did.
Yeah, I mean that my whole social life just was sacrificed in a lot of ways during that time. I just really loved art so much, and I wanted to make something of myself, that it's just something that I was willing to do because I knew what I wanted to be. It's not going to be the right thing for everybody, but for me it was. So I didn't really have a great balance of really anything. Like I would have it in waves, Like sometimes I would be out taking care of myself, like working out a lot, getting out and seeing people, and then I would vanish for like months into my work. I think like now I have a really good balance because, you know, I couldn't do any of it without Kim. It's like the way that we have our life right now. Kim handles so much stuff that, you know, it makes it possible for me to do any of the things that you see me doing. So that's a huge part of why I'm able to like continue to work like this and have a family and still be a human being. But yeah, I mean, none of it's easy, especially
Well,
in the
that's more
beginning.
important to me. Like, obviously, Dave having, an opportunity to be, like, have a relationship with our kids. Like, I take on a lot so that when he's, done working, we can just all be together. Otherwise, I'd just be like, you can do it. Be lazy,
Yeah, but we both
not
are like
offer to help.
pretty
What am I?
workaholics.
Yeah.
Like we are both very much that same personality type as well, so that helps. You know, like Kim does not slack on anything. Like Kim's like a super driven person. So we both are very much in the mindset of like, okay, we need to get things done, and we have to make ourselves stop to like relax. That was
Slow
like
down.
a big thing for us for a long time, was just forcing ourselves to relax. So it's, you know, good. And I mean, kids do that, you know, like
But it's
you
why
have
we
to
like
like be
some of the
balanced.
craziest decisions. Like we decided to get married, I started nursing school, have a baby during like my finals and stuff. And like
Yeah.
the week that my son was born, I graduated with my bachelor's in nursing. And I was still like turning papers in, having contractions. We
Yeah.
just take on too much. Like it was really hard to slow down at all. I felt like it took me a year to get used to just being with my children, but then I just found things to keep me busy.
Yeah, it's
And now I
very
do
like
everything. I was like, what else? Take
unhealthy.
on? What else? Yeah. This is a really good question. Chicken Strike said, "Hey Dave, will you do any art with the public domain characters like Winnie the Pooh or Steamboat Willie?"
Yeah, I was actually thinking of doing stuff with Winnie the Pooh, like a little kid things, because, you know, we got kids and I love Winnie the Pooh. And I have like first edition copies of the books and stuff. So like,
Hmm.
yeah, I would love to do something in that universe. I don't know what, but something would be fun. Yeah,
It
obviously
would be
have a
cute
bunch of
just to
other
put
things
our
to do.
kids in that universe.
Yeah. But
That'd be cute.
I already made like cards and things for like our baby showers for like our
Mhm.
kids, and you know, with Winnie the Pooh on them, with like them with Winnie the Pooh. So I can literally just take
They're
those
so
designs
cute.
and reuse them on like Etsy or something if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Sell cards and whatever.
Um, hmm Michael says, "Have you tried the Harmony brushes in Infinite Painter? They are very similar to Chrome Thin and Chrome Large."
I've seen them. I haven't tried them, but a dude that I really like, Daryl Mandrake, he uses them. I saw that on Twitter and I was like, oh my god, that's so close to the Krita brushes.
Nice.
Yeah,
Is this another free program, Harmony?
I don't actually know.
Hmm. Benjamin Donnelly says, "Hugely inspired by your work recently, Dave. Love your mentality with making art in your own IP."
Thanks.
I feel like
Yeah,
this is the thing that's like so nice to read because I feel like as soon as you're doing something that you're more passionate about, you can see the response. Like people are very positive and they like to see, your own thing rather than just recreations. Like
yeah,
all these like, 90s movies that are being recreated. All these like now early 2000s movies that are being recreated, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, people want different stuff. That's for sure.
Reboot. Mm-hmm. Not just a reboot all the time.
And you got to do
You
your own thing if you
comics
want, if
for
you have it.
mm-hmm. Comics for Life says, do you have a body of work you're most proud of? A good question too.
Um, when it comes to personal stuff, I'm still most proud of Steve Lichman. I honestly think
Mm-hmm.
like that is the most me thing that's out there right now that people can buy.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like
It's very
work
much.
that I've done for people, I would say, I mean, I'm pretty proud of the current stuff I've done for Diablo, just because I feel like I really pushed myself to be that artist, like be the artist I wanted to be when I was a kid. Like when I was a kid, I was obsessed with like Diablo 2 and the artwork for that, and Braum and that whole aesthetic. So I wanted to, in a perfect world, just at some point do that. Like I would look at that work when I started working on D&D back in the day, and now that I'm doing it, I feel like I'm ready for it, and I feel like I'm pushing myself and trying new things and learning a lot. So, yeah, that's something I'm proud of at the moment.
Um, I don't know how to say this name. I says, really basic question. How do you maintain the same margin space across the pages? You just have guides?
For these pages, I just made a layout and then I follow that for everything. So like I have this border, I know where the crop is going to be, and I just kind of go off of that. And when these go to the printer, I'll make little lines on the margins to tell the printer where to cut everything, and then that'll be that.
Catching
And
up.
then I also designed all
Okay.
the panels.
Um, what comic book style or artist inspired you most when making this specific project?
That's a good question. Nothing really.
Mm-hmm.
I think of like Arthur Rackham. I think of Windsor McKay. Um, yeah, I'm kind of trying to go for like a really old school look that people don't do so much, like that old ink style. I want it, like part of the thing that I always think about when I'm working on really anything related to Starvale, which is what this is. I try and think of the comic as a comic that somebody's finding somewhere, like it always existed. So I try and go for a feel like that, like it's a old style, and maybe this is just something you've never heard of, but it's definitely not new. Like that's kind of the feeling I want to get across.
Jacobo says, so sacrifice your friends, family, and everyone you care about to become a top tier artist? Got it. Common Kim win. W's in the chat. I'm a walking W. What does that mean?
Means you're good.
Oh, okay. All right, I'm catching up. I promise. I'm just reading through. Indigo Prime says, new subscriber, just wanted to pay my compliments. Your Gorgeous art, and thank you for the words of wisdom. Love the colors, much love. This this has to be indigo, right?
No, it couldn't be.
No, no
No.
way.
Indigo wouldn't say that. Thank you.
Okay,
Indigo knows me.
very kind. That's true. Are there any Chrome-like brushes for Procreate? Though I know you're not a fan of that software. It's been a long time
Uh,
since you've used it.
yeah, I don't think so. It's such a specific, like, magnetic type of brush. I don't really know what else is like this or where you'd find something like this in another program. But other people would know better than me, people who use those programs. They should absolutely
Um,
entertain having a brush like this, though. It's great. What's up?
VB says, loving the stream. Any writing you're enjoying in movies, TVs, or books? We're both reading books right now actively, but
Yeah,
mine's complicated.
yeah.
It's just kind of hard
Kim's
for me at the end of the
reading.
day to be like wanting to read it.
She's reading House of Leaves. That's why. But
It's just taking a lot of brain capacity, I feel like.
um, I thought the writing in Blue Eye Samurai was really, really good. I felt like that was
Loved
great.
that.
Like that above
hmm
so much. Like that eclipsed so
I,
many things for me.
I think what makes me sad is that I never really saw it advertised, which maybe makes me feel like they didn't think it was going to do well, you know?
Yeah. It's
And so
that's like
I
an
just feel like
incredibly well written
it
show.
was it was so good, and I feel like not enough people knew about it.
It
It was
started to
not
grow
advertised
though.
very
Like
well.
as soon as it started
Yeah.
to gain like traction online, a lot of people were talking about it. But that was great. And what else was I thinking about? Uh, Something came to mind. I already forgot it. You can move on to the next thing. I'll bring it
Okay.
up if I think about it.
Is Steve's head bare bone, no skin, like dried skin? Yeah, just bare bone.
No, it's dry skin. It's like a lich skin. So he has. That's why
Oh,
he has
is
ears.
it? Oh, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. I
His
thought he was
ears
just
are.
blue bones. I
I
forgot
mean,
about his
he's
ears.
essentially a skeleton, but he has like, some ribs and whatever. He used to be more detailed when we first were like sketching him out, but he started to get, simpler and simpler.
What is the best chain fast food and order?
I'm not a huge chain fast food person, but my favorite is probably Shake Shack, and I just get
Yeah,
a regular burger, just a regular Shake
double.
Shack Shack Stack.
Shack, the Shack, isn't it just the Shack burger?
I don't fucking know. I don't remember.
I don't know either. It's been a long time since we've been.
We don't eat like a ton of fast food, really.
I'm also a personal chef. I don't know if you guys know.
Yeah,
Sometimes
not
my
with Kim
boss
around.
lets me stream my cooking,
Yeah, and I go, "What are you doing? What's that?"
and I have to.
And she hides the phone, and I go, "No, show it to me. You're live right now. You should be making me a cake. Make me
See those
cinnamon
cookies,
rolls.
grind them up.
Yeah, put them on my body. Exfoliation."
Where do I donate parasocially from a relationship with Dave, or to form a relationship with Dave?
Donate?
Uh-huh.
Just the Patreon.
Patreon is, yeah. If you go to the
This,
Patreon, it's linked,
yeah, in the
I believe,
description.
in
If
the
you wanna,
description.
if you wanna help support the comic, the Patreon has hundreds and hundreds of hours of tutorials, and I wouldn't say hundreds
Mm-hmm.
and hundreds, about probably like 200 hours of video, and then also years worth of content for $5 a month. So if you
Yeah.
like listening to stuff, I mean, it's essentially
And then access
the
to the
bare
Discord,
minimum.
which is the whole community.
Because
Yeah.
I learned so much stuff for free, you know, and I want to keep doing stuff. So when I was growing up and coming up in art, like I gained a lot from cheap resources. So I just wanted to offer cheap resources. So you just have
And
access. As long as you're subscribed, you got access to tons of shit. I don't
you
care.
said the Discord too, right? Where right
Yeah,
now
it
we're
has a
doing a
Discord.
challenge that we're going to review next week, which somebody had mentioned already. So next week we will be reviewing the challenge from the Discord.
Yeah, and that'll
And
be a
I'm
private review for just patrons.
did Dan say that he wanted to join?
I gotta ask him.
Okay. Okay, I'm scrolling down again. Let me see. I see my name again. Hey Dave, do you have daily, weekly schedule you stick to? Particularly interested in how you balance between email, business work versus drawing time.
Sure, I'll tell you that. I mean, the schedule that I follow is the one that I generally talk about, which is just 10 to 4, and then if I have to work late, then I'll work from about like 7-ish all the way till maybe like 10:30, or that's generally where I tend to cut it off. But for emails, it's just kind of do it in the morning. If I'm going to do that, like when I'm just kind of settling in, I'll just respond to stuff that's vital. And anything that takes like a really short amount of time, then I'll do that. If it takes like a big in-depth thing and I feel like I'm going to get super distracted and go down a bunch of rabbit holes, I won't do that first thing. That'll be like an end of the day when I'm completely out of energy to work sort of task. I tend to prioritize my energy above all else. So it's like whatever, like if there's things I have to do that aren't art related, but well, you know, tangentially art related, I will do that at the very end when I'm out of energy and steam for working. Because if I'm just kind of, I have a cup of coffee, I'm ready to get to work, I will just start working. If there isn't something like I absolutely have to do and it doesn't take me any time.
Will you do signed copies of your next comic?
Good question. I'll probably do the thing that I did with Steve Lichman, where we get like a plate, like imprinted in all the books, and those will be signed. Because that's way easier to have the plates like sent to the house and then sign all of those, rather than have
Usually
every
lighter.
single book sent.
Yeah.
Which is like really, really hard to do. Because really what you want to do when you're shipping a ton of books is you want to get them to a distributor, not to your house.
Yeah.
So
Or your apartment where we were like had to line the walls with books.
yes. Well, we didn't like ship them all ourselves. We had we had Amazon do it the first time. But we had a bunch of extra books that were like personal books. And those extra books were just everywhere in the house. So if we had shipped every book ourselves, like we had, I don't know, maybe like 8,000 books to send.
We still
So
have,
that would
we've
have been
moved
ridiculous.
with books. We
Oh
have
yeah, we
like
still have books.
a handful of book one books, and we're like, the only way we're gonna sell these, like again, is if we bring it to like a convention here in Denver, because there's no way that we can like ship what we have. It's just insane.
Yeah, so if you're
The
ever
hopes
at
that
the
we sell
Denver,
each one.
the Denver Comic Con, I'll let you know if we're gonna be there, and then you
Yeah.
can come and grab a book if you want.
If you haven't gotten one, or if you wanted a second one.
Yeah, I mean we're moving on to the third one now. It's gonna be something that we do this year. Hopefully, we just wrap the whole thing up by the fall. That's the plan, but we'll see. I'm not making any promises. I'm just saying that's what we want.
Yeah. EJ Fudd said, years ago I bought the Bog Witch tutorial. It would be cool if you did something similar with your current process.
Yeah, I could do that again. I need to do something that's like outside of just my Patreon walls because I feel like people don't even know how much stuff is in there.
Mm-mm.
Like there's so much shit in the Patreon that's like Bogwitch ish.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've done commentary over process of videos for like 15 hours on the Patreon. And that's on like a single
Um,
illustration.
Lan says, watching the YouTube, it shows you drawing zoomed out. Is this actually how you're drawing, or just how the broadcast portrays it?
No, that's how I'm drawing.
Mm.
I am drawing zoomed out. It's the best way to do it. You can imply all the right detail because, you know, if people open this book, they're not gonna like press their face against the paper and just stare at it. They're gonna take it in
Yeah.
like this, you know. So if they're
Yeah.
taking in the image like that, I want to make sure that that's when it looks its best.
When do you know to stop drinking coffee in the day?
When I start to spaz out, when I start to feel like my body's shaking and I go, oh, why am I nervous? I shouldn't be nervous. I've had too much caffeine.
Nicholas says, I did want to take a minute to thank you for helping me inspire me to get back on track. I had a major health scare last year, so I took a break from working in the industry. These have helped me lots.
Oh, that's great to hear. I hope that you're doing significantly better.
Yeah.
It's never fun.
Lan says, you must have perfect vision.
Nope. I do
He
not.
does not have perfect vision. That probably helps. It looks a little blurry. So
That helps with the implication.
it's the implication.
Yeah, I'm able to imply all these details because I can't see them.
Hey, so I finally tried the chrome thin brush. It feels really good, but I feel like I don't totally understand how the brush works. Is it slow equals thicker, basically?
No. You have to like, you can, so watch the screen right now. So there's certain things like if I hold it down, I can drag out to the side and create this real thick line. Or I can follow, like this is all one stroke. Or I can follow the brush around, create this thin line, and then scribble out, connect between lines like that. It has this magnetic thing. So certain stuff is really cool. Like if you want to draw a circle, like it'll automatically kind of connect to itself like that. So you could do that and then just quickly fill it in, which is really nice. But then that can work against you in a lot of cases because if you want to do like a line like this, like side to side, like you can see how that's probably not what you're after. So what I tend to do on things that kind of move around a lot is I lift my brush up. I lift my brush up a lot so that things don't get interconnected and strange throughout. But you get a feel for it after using it a ton, and then eventually, you know, you just know what to do when you're painting or inking, and it's kind of second nature. Like I want it to do this sometimes, not all the time, so I know exactly when to lift my brush up.
Do you still have original signed copies of the first two Steve books? I got my brother into your stuff, but he lost his books after a breakup with his girlfriend.
I do. They're just not like for sale or anything. But that's the thing that we'll probably have at like the Denver Comic-Con because I do need to get my stock out of the house. It's too
And
much.
also, if you want I can also sign them. I will be at the table. My signature is not in there, but if you want it to be,
Yeah, you just
bring a
just
marker. That's all
have
I'm
her
asking. I'm not going to
have
use
her
my own
write
marker. Bring your own.
private chef Kimmy on the inside.
I'm not bringing my own marker in anticipation because that would be embarrassing if I brought it and nobody asked. So
That's
make
true.
sure you bring a marker. That's all I'm saying. Huzzy says, "That's what you think, Dave. I've got my telescope trained on my monitor right now, and let me tell you, this comic page looks like shit at 10,000x zoom."
True. Too true.
That's imagine if that's how bad Dave's eyes were, that he needed like some prescription that was like 10,000 times.
All right. Well, I think I'm gonna call it. I mean, I've done a ton of stuff today. If you want to see, this is the whole thing that I had drawn out. In terms of detail, it's pretty crazy. So as you can see, big old page of inks. So yeah, I think I'm gonna call it here because I've been on for about 2 hours. But I wanted to keep going because I was making such good progress. It's very exciting. I'll just answer like one more question.
Color.
Yeah.
The coloring process. You want to do that one?
Yeah.
So Thomas Walker says, in your coloring process, how instinctive are your color choices? I am trying to introduce color variations in an image, but the final product still seems a little flat.
I mean, it's probably just a lack of contrast. I feel like that's usually what gives anything dimension, is how you control your lighting in an image. So like if you look at this over here, like I usually use a multiply layer for my shadows. So if I here, let me show you in Photoshop because I have this whole thing layered. So if I go back down through my layers, you know, I can turn off just that one multiply layer, you know, like just check it out. Like I just drop in some shadows on a multiply layer and suddenly the whole thing has life to it. And I also run like a couple soft light layers over top of this whole thing. So, I mean, more than that, but I'll show you. So this is what it looks like with just, let me turn off some of the textural things. So this is what it looks like with just inks and flat colors underneath it. And then this is it with just the shadow layer. And then here it is with some soft light adjustments. And then a little bit of a multiply layer to add some more shadow from the environment. And then I paint over top of it so that he's kind of blending into the space a little bit better, with some lighting and things kind of glowing off the character and just setting them into the area I want them to be. And then I do a layer on top of everything that is like highlights. So I just add a little bit of light to kind of pop them out a bit. And then I add texture, like old paper texture on top, and then like a noise layer, just to give it a lot of like grit, like as if it's been printed on very old paper. Yeah, and that's how I tend to add a bunch of depth to the whole thing. So yeah, that's about it. But I'm sorry if I couldn't get to your questions, and you know we couldn't.
I think I did. I think I did pretty good.
Yeah, Kimmy did good. But if we're missing any ending ones here, we're just at the tail end of the stream, 2 hours in. Really happy with this one. This was great. Thank you, Kimmy, for
definitely
helping so much. I could just focus on my drawing. It was nice.
Yeah, absolutely. You got a lot done.
Yeah.
And it like flew by. 2 hours is really fast. But if
Yeah.
anyone wants to join the Patreon, like I said, we are doing a review of a challenge that we're trying to do with Discord. So we're doing a challenge that we're reviewing next week. And if you don't have time to join, we'll probably be doing more this year and
Yeah.
hopefully bringing back portfolio reviews at some point. So, and that's all part of the Discord through the Patreon.
And again, if you ever want to learn anything from my process and past processes and anything you've ever seen me do, really, all of that's up on the Patreon, which is in the description below. And if you want to check out the next stream, we'll be live again next Thursday night, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can figure out what time that is for you. And yeah, you can subscribe here, and then you'll get a notification. I'll put up the next stream that's going to be next week. I'll put that up right after this is over, so you don't have to go looking for it. That'll just be on the YouTube page. So yeah, see you all later. Thanks so much for all the questions. Really appreciate it. Your support
Thanks for
is
having
everything.
me.
And thank you for everybody who's a patron, who's allowing me to make comics that I want to make and having some way to fund them. It's a dream to do that, and I don't take that lightly, so thank you all. See you next week. And oh yeah, see you for the judging of the challenge too. Bye everybody.
Bye.